Okay, we're here. Happy freaking New Year, everybody. You know, this podcast has been in the works for, I don't know, at least 3 months. I have like, no joke, I have about 3 episodes, maybe 4, that I've already recorded, and no one's ever going to see them because because I have mental problems. No, but in all honesty, I think in anything that has to do with KB Media, and I'm super super passionate about what I do. Anybody that knows me personally knows this very well, but I really am slightly a perfectionist when it comes to anything that I put out. So I think sometimes, and I really, if you were that way, I understand you and I get you. And this is why I need to hire my team to come and work with me specifically, because I have sometimes that really, really hinders people from getting anything done. So, point A, myself. So, that's not a problem. That's not why we're here, right? We're here because I am starting this podcast specifically for entrepreneurs who want a different perspective. And I think that, marketing is always something that's really difficult to talk about because, one, it's a pretty saturated market, right? No pun intended. It is a saturated market, but everybody's perspectives are very, very different. And I think that I hope if you guys decide to stick around that you're going to see things from my perspective. And even if you take away small bits and pieces and apply it to your business, and it hopefully makes a significant change for you, I think that I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's not a very business first perspective. I would say, if anything, it's more a creativity and customer based strategy. So I'm shooting a podcast, guys. Please don't text me. Rude. No, I'm just kidding. So I think that that's really what a lot of this podcast is. So this episode specifically is going to be all about the mindset. Mindset is, no joke, the biggest shift that you will make if you are a business entrepreneur, if you are an entrepreneur in general, if you're a creative one, if you are just, if you are product-based, service-based, no matter what you are. If you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business, your mindset is such a huge and crucial part of your success. So what do I mean by mindset? So I think that, and now when I talk about this, sometimes people kind of get a little woo-woo about it, and they feel like maybe I'm a bit, and I am a dreamer. So we'll also start with that. I am a big dreamer, but I also think that you kind of have to be if you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, you kind of have the dream. You have the itch, the dream, like whatever you want to call it, but you have the want for something bigger, for something better, to give that to yourself, right? So I think that already as an entrepreneur, you have this specific mindset in general. So now when you guys listen to this, I hope you, whether you're listening to this in the car or before bed, or, when you're drinking coffee in the morning, I encourage you to take notes. If you can, please don't if you're driving. But the mindset of an entrepreneur is really crucial and linked to the success of the business. So what I mean by mindset is the first thing that you have to really, really connect with is that the idea that anything is possible. And not a lot of entrepreneurs have that. I mean, not the ones that I have spoken with specifically. And that's usually when my team comes in and we really that's what we're selling. Like, we're selling the fact that really anything is possible. And I'm not saying that in the sense of oh, you have to buy into this mindset, or you have to buy my course, or anything like that. I'm doing this obviously because I feel very passionate about it. But it's there are so many entrepreneurs out there that really are, and again, we'll talk about this too, but it's really about what your goals are as well. But you have to believe that your goals and your dreams are possible. That is, without a doubt, the number one roadblock you will hit. If you decide that you want to start a business, and you decide, hey, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to start this business, say you want to basket weave, and you don't believe that basket weaving can get you to what your goals are, then why are you doing it? Right? If you don't believe that you can actually do it and that you can create something bigger and better for yourself, why are you doing it? So that's the first thing, right? And I think that there's really a large scale of belief in that spectrum. I think that, when you start your business, you think like, okay, like I'm going to start basket weaving. And I really do believe that this could give me the freedom, the financial freedom, the personal freedom that I am looking for to create a better life for myself. And I think that that's phenomenal. So, and sometimes when you start a business, you underestimate what it can provide for you in your life anyway. So sometimes you get into your business and you're like, okay, like I'm able to have a little bit more financial freedom. I'm able to, stay at home with my children. I'm able to take that vacation that I wanted to do, whatever that goal looks like, right? And like I said, we'll talk about goals here in just a second. But I really think that, when we start, we don't really even understand and know like what the ceiling is, because there is no ceiling. And I think the further we get into business, we realize that we're like, oh, wow, the idea and the hope is that we grow each and every year, right? Like that is the hope, is that we grow each and every year. So each and every year we're getting a little bit bigger. So I really truly think that as that happens, your mind starts to expand. And at least this is the way that it happened for me. And now I'm a very aggressive dreamer. I've always been this way. It's just who I am. Not everybody is like this, even entrepreneurs. And so I've always been an aggressive dreamer. So I've always fought really, really hard at these dreams. And I kind of, have come into the mindset of manifesting actually really does work because I kind of force it to. There's really no option, right? And I really think that's really what manifesting is. Like you manifest because you don't give up and you just keep going until it happens. You can't fail if you don't quit, right? So, kind of all the same concept and ideas, right? So I think as we get into business, at least for me, that's when my mindset really started changing, and I really started to understand what manifesting was, and that it really was just a product of my goals and setting goals really high and being very aggressive. So, but sometimes, there's goals. Sometimes people have goals that are just, like I said, I just want to be able to take that extra vacation. I just want to be able to stay at home with my children. I just want to be able to do X, Y, Z. So, and that's fine. And sometimes they stay there forever, and that's okay too. But I also am a huge believer in really going, like, if, we're only doing this one time. We're only doing this life thing once. So if we're only doing this life thing once, why don't you hit as hard as you can hit? Why don't you try to nail it out of the park? And you think, well, Kelly, I'm a basket weaver. How far can I really hit? You can hit as far as you want until Netflix is knocking on your door, or until Martha Stewart is coming and knocking on your door, or until Oprah's like, hey, I love your product. I'm going to put it on my, list of Oprah's favorite products. I think I think people have the tendency to believe that people that get those opportunities, or people that have those chances, they get those chances because of some almost like they're fake, or they're not real, or they're so unachievable that they why would I even try for that? Because it's so unimaginable. And that's what I'm talking about in this episode when I'm talking about mindset, because that is what mindset really is. That is, you have to believe that it's possible. You have to believe that what you are offering people is truly unique and has enough of a different perspective, or brings a different value, that you have to really feel that in your mind, body, and soul. Because if you don't, you're never going to be on Oprah's list. You're never going to be next to Martha Stewart. It's just not going to happen. So I mean, maybe by happenstance, like if you get really lucky, like good for you. I think that's phenomenal. But like the likelihood of that happening if you aren't fully sunken into the idea is really low. And that's unfortunate. And I find that really sad. And a lot of the time, so I know a lot of these things that I preach, I know from personal experience, right? And I've done this to myself numerous times throughout my career where I'm like, I just don't want that. Like, I just don't want to be next to Martha Stewart. I just I said I'm an aggressive dreamer, which I really am, but I also have a tendency to get, when fear shows up for me, this is how it shows up. It'll show up as, oh, well, you know what? I just don't want those things. Maybe I just don't want to have a company of 50 people, or maybe I just don't want to, have Netflix call me to ask them to create ideas for them or pitch them ideas or, whatever. Like maybe I don't think I want that. I don't want it. And so sometimes that shows up as fear, and 95% of the time it is. Because I know that happens to me where I'm like, oh no, I just don't want those things. I just don't want them because that's just not the life that I want. And then on the inside, I'm like, well, fuck, I actually really do want that, but that all sounds really scary. All sounds so scary, because then you start thinking about the reality of those things, and it's the reality of what your life would be like right now if those things were to happen to you, and that becomes a little overwhelming. And but in reality, those things aren't probably going to happen for the next at least year to 5 years. So it's not something you necessarily have to panic about right now. They're really just, they're goals, right? Like if you want to be on Martha Stewart and you want to be next to Martha Stewart and you're a basket weaver, how are you going to get there? So like I said, this is why this episode is so important, because if you're not sold into the idea, oh man, someone's calling me. If you're not sold into the idea, then it's just not, it'll never happen. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be your number one advocate. You've got to be the one that is pushing for yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. I mean, I have one of the best support teams that I could truly ever ask for, but at the end of the day, this isn't their goal. This isn't their dream. No one's going to check up on them or check up on my goals every day like I will. So that's really important. It's really important to think about, know, understand. And so I think for some reason, people have a really hard time buying into that. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is the case. Because it's hard for me to understand. And maybe it's just because I've been in the industry for so long that it is, I can't decide which, I think it's this way. Yeah. Okay. I think it's just because I've been an entrepreneur for so long, and I feel like I've manifested enough things that I really do truly believe that anything is possible. It's without a doubt 100% real. And I think a lot of the time people just really don't know how to get there. They're like, okay, well, if I want to be on Netflix, that seems completely that's not for me. That's not a that's not a thing that's not for me, right? It's just not for me. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because the people that are on Netflix probably felt the same way, right? They're and I feel like when you see people interviewed and products on Oprah or whatever, I know personally people that have been on those lists, and they're just normal people, right? They're just normal people with small businesses that have fought tooth and nail to work really, really hard to be in those rooms, to, interact with those people, to get those opportunities. And sometimes that takes a ton of sacrifice. And sacrifice is, again, a whole nother conversation that I know a lot about. And yeah, it's just that's a whole nother episode topic. But, we're going into the new year and we are talking about mindset and how important that is and why you have to have the correct mindset moving forward. Because if you don't, we might as well just throw in the towel, call this a night, and be done, truly. Because if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe those things are possible, then I think that we just, and that's okay. Like, that's not, like, I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying that that is, like, it's your life, right? Like, you do whatever you want with your life. But I do believe that if you are going to put time, money, and effort into something, why not make it the best it can be? Like, why wouldn't you give yourself a shot? Like, why wouldn't you highlight and teach yourself or push yourself to do the things that make you really uncomfortable and really scared? Because that's when you're going to find the biggest growth. So, again, like, goals are, I don't want to talk about goals and goal setting in this specific episode. I really just wanted to talk about mindset. If you want to talk about goals, head to the next episode because we're going to be talking about that. But I do believe that mindset is truthfully the most important thing as an entrepreneur. And I'm not saying that mindset is you're going to have the greatest mindset all the time, because there are plenty of times that I felt like I was just going to quit. I just didn't want to do this anymore. I couldn't do it. You hit a wide variety of roadblocks throughout the process, and, it's very, very, very difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, that is for sure. And there are times that you get tested in ways that you never ever thought was possible. So I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm not saying that this is something that is for everybody. I'm not saying that, if you just, become an entrepreneur and work really hard, that you're just going to all of a sudden get the things that you want, because that's not true either. There's so much that goes into this. There's so much that people just don't realize, and tools that people don't realize have the ability to completely change the trajectory of their business, of their life. And fortunately and unfortunately, being an entrepreneur, your life and your business are so closely linked. You are, it is a part of you. It is a huge part of you that, whether you like it or not, it's really difficult to separate yourself from. It's literally like a child. And so people that don't live this lifestyle really have a hard time with that, aka my husband, who has worked corporate his whole life and doesn't really understand how I can't walk away from work sometimes and separate my life and my work, and because it's just not that easy. So yeah. Well, I'm glad I got this podcast out, or not this podcast. Well, I am glad I got the podcast out, but this episode specifically, because it is so, you'll hear me talk about it and reference this episode a lot. So that's why it's important that this is the first episode that you listen to. So I appreciate you guys. Head to the next episode. We're talking goals. We're talking about how to set goals for 2025. And I'm like pumped about it. Let's fucking get it. So, all right, guys, love you lots. Like and subscribe. Comment if you have any questions. And always feel free to DM me if you need any sort of guidance, life support in any way possible. I'm here to help. I'll talk to you guys soon.